Hey everybody, it's David Plouffe, Barack Obama's campaign manager. I want to thank you for allowing me to address the We Media Conference and talk to you for a few minutes about how we utilized all the technologies that so many of you in the room were instrumental in creating. Obviously, a lot's been written about our campaign. We grew to 13 million people online and all the various use of technology that we used in the campaign. But I'll talk a little bit, try and strip it down a little bit and give you a sense of how strategically all these tools and approach really resulted in the election of Barack Obama as our 44th president. First of all, we viewed the internet as a way, as an engine to gather people. We needed to build a grassroots campaign. We started from scratch. We knew we had to get millions of people involved to have any chance of winning the election. So we used the internet as an engine to just attract people who expressed some interest in Obama and then began communicating with them and getting them involved financially through their volunteer work, through spreading message. We use the internet to move message, and I think that's one of the underappreciated parts of how we use technology. By the end of the campaign, we had 13 million people on our email list. So when we sent out a video or a message, we were reaching millions of people who would open that, and many of them would then forward it on. So in many respects, there were days during the campaign where we were reaching as many people directly through our email list as we're watching the nightly news. And so it was a way to really get around the media filter a little bit, but also just amplify our message and make sure those people who weren't consuming cable news or the broadcast news had another way to understand what our message of that particular period of the campaign was. We know a lot's been written about how much money we raised online, and there's no doubt that was instrumental to our success, but at the beginning of the campaign, that was the one thing we thought we'd be able to do. We didn't know the scale would grow as big as it did, but we thought that the internet would be a great way for us to raise money. The big challenge, aside from moving message, was how do we use the internet to organize? Because that's been the holy grail of politics. The internet's been used to raise money, it has been used to capture people's names, but it hasn't been used to organize. And our approach from the beginning was, so many people live their lives through technology every day, and why should their interaction with politics be the one exception to that? So we tried to make people feel very liberated to, if they wanted to email out a supporter card, for instance in the Iowa caucuses, that was okay. If they wanted to text their friends rather than call at a phone bank, that was okay. And so we never got it perfectly done, but the organizing that we did, it wasn't just a way to capture people, it was an engine, but more and more people helped us organize online. Rapid response was a big part of that. We had hundreds of thousands of people signed up specifically to respond to attacks. So in the general election, when John McCain was attacking us on Bill Ayers or taxes or the laughable Joe the Plumber episode, we'd be able to get the facts out there to people. And millions of people were getting our take on the story. And I think that that's another way that this election changed politics, is that rapid response isn't just a press release or even what the candidate says every day. You've got an army of people out there trying to help you tell the truth. We obviously did use a lot of new technologies. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, all became ways for people to be engaged in the campaign. We set up our own social networking site, mybarackobama.com, which hundreds of thousands of people got involved in. And it was a way for them to organize their communities and track their involvement for the campaign. And for many people, that's how they want to organize these days. And we always found we'd get into some states in the primary in particular, where we'd send staff into the state, and there are already tens of thousands of people already organized. People had done it through our website or through Facebook, and it was a remarkable thing to see. And I think that that really is the future of politics, although there's a lot of focus on the tools right now. The tools are available to anybody. We might have had more faith in the tools. We might have invested more heavily and early in the tools. But it comes down to inspiration. And that's what we had. We had a candidate who inspired people to give money they didn't have to give, time they didn't have to give, to keep digging in hard over 2 years to make the campaign a success. And I think they got the sense that our candidate and our campaign deeply appreciated and respected their role in the campaign. And one of the things we did a lot during the end of the campaign, you might remember, is I would do a lot of videos out to our supporters, trying to explain to them where we were in that particular moment in the campaign, what the challenges we were facing, and why it was important that they continue to dig in deep. And I think people appreciated that. They got the sense that we were not just asking for their help, we wanted to include them in where the campaign was at that particular time. We also put a lot of pressure on people. And this doesn't have anything to do with technology per se, but grassroots development is we would put a lot of pressure on our volunteers, say, we're counting on you. You've got to give more time, you've got to give more money. And that's a little bit unusual. but our sense was the commitment was so deep. We needed people to understand we were counting on them, that our strategy to win the election was in fact based largely on their ability to continue to deliver votes and money and new volunteers to us. And so we used the internet and other communications tools to point that out. One I would consider kind of an old school thing we did, that was probably one of the more important things we did, was just old-fashioned Google advertising to provide information. What we did in the primary and caucuses and then in the general election was, before any election, the Iowa caucus, the Minnesota caucus, the Georgia primary, we would buy ads. So if someone were to type in Minnesota caucus location, they'd come to our site. And it was a much more developed site than a state party would have or even state election officials would have. So they could say, I'll type in their address and see where their caucus location was or where their primary location was. In the general election, how to register, how to vote early, how to vote absentee. What was remarkable is how many people didn't know that information. We were dependent on a lot of younger voters and a lot of first-time voters who didn't know where their caucus location was. They'd never been. They might not have voted in the general election before. They certainly hadn't voted early before. So they were looking for information. And maybe they got mailed a form or a letter from an elections official, but they might not have opened it, might not have seen it. So I think if we hadn't done that, we might have lost a lot of people. So we needed to make it easy for people to participate. And there were some caucuses in the Democratic primary where 25 or 30% of the people who ended up attending came in through our caucus lookup tool. And it just tells you sometimes there's a lot of focus on, I think, the whiz-bang part of this and the new technology, and that was important. But part of it is always to remember your baseline mission. And our baseline mission was to get people to vote, more than even contributing or volunteering. And that kind of basic information was so important. And I think it speaks to the power of the internet. We also use texting for that. The power to deliver information to people so they can do what they want to do and seek that information that allows them to do that. So, technology was in many ways the backbone of our campaign. It was the engine that we used to grow our grassroots. It's the primary way we raise money. It was an important part of message delivery. And so, and I think that's only going to become more and more so in the years ahead. Again, I think the mistake some people will make, both in politics and in business and nonprofits, is to try and replicate what we did. You can try and replicate the tools, but you have to have some kind of inspiration so that people are going to utilize the technology because it's powerful tools, but people need to spend a lot of time and effort to take advantage of it. You need an organization that treats technology and its power and its connection to the grassroots as central to its mission, not something that's a nice addition to the main campaign or organization, but that's central. And I think we did that pretty much religiously over those 2 years. So as we move forward here, we're trying to make sure that people who want to stay involved in their democracy through building support for things like the recovery plan that just passed, healthcare, energy, education. And this is going to be a lot of trial and error, but we know technology is going to be more important than it was even in the campaign. In the campaign, we had 5,000 to 6,000 staff out there who were able to really work with our supporters. In the Organizing for America, we're going to have a more skeletal structure. So technology and our volunteer grassroots leaders are going to be even more important for how we deliver message and organize. So I want to thank you for your interest in what we did in the campaign. So many of you, again, I referenced my beginning remarks, we utilized your creativity and brain power and breakthroughs in technology in a way that certainly hadn't been done in politics. We learned a lot about how people on the cutting edge and in the corporate world were using technology. I think politics is well behind the curve in that regard, and we haven't probably caught all the way up yet, but we made some progress in our own campaign. So, my belief in the role of technology in politics has never been greater. I think it's going to help spread democracy around the world. I think it ought to be used to increase participation. I think it makes people more engaged because they can seek out their own information. More and more people don't want to just receive information from the media or other sources. They want to engage in their own conversations, seek out their own information. And so the internet and new technologies remain a very liberating thing. So it's a pleasure being able to spend some time with you. I think that what all of you are doing is going to be deeply impactful in our country and our world for years to come. And hopefully we can continue to be partners in the effort to innovate and find new ways to make progress. Thank you.